Hey there, this is going to be an overview of all the kind of important things you need to know for using Superior Drummer, both by itself and in a DAW. I'm going to cover a lot of different stuff, kind of what it is, how you get the things, make sure everything's installed right, making the sounds, loading it into the DAW, all the kind of core important things that you need to know. So hopefully you'll be able just to refer back to this and it'll be helpful. So let's kind of get into it. I have right here the TuneTrack website. TuneTrack is the people who make Superior Drummer and a few other products. They have Easy Drummer, which is kind of like a lighter version, so not everyone needs the full complexity of Superior Drummer. Um, I like the Superior Drummer because it has a lot more flexibility in terms of what you can do. It's basically like, as it says here, a virtual drum studio. Whereas Easy Drummer, again, it's just a little more simplified. You don't deep dive into all the stuff, but all the things are kind of cross compatible when we get into that. There's also Easy Keys. I really like this one. Again, it's a kind of like the Superior Drummer, but it's for piano. There's another bass one. They've just come out now with the Beat Machine here. I haven't ever explored this one. I'm gonna open that up and check it out a little bit later. It might be worth looking into. They also have Easy Mix, which I haven't personally used. Again, I like to have a little more fine control over my mixes than what this offers. But for people starting out, it's worth hopping into. So each of these is a separate program that you can buy. So I'm going to open up Superior Drummer because that's going to be the main focus here. But just to real quickly look, a Human Beat Machine, actually that's not that um, expensive there. I may end up getting this next pay period um, on there. We'll just we'll add that to cart just to start with. Um, this actually no, this is for Easy Drummer. In that case, it's not a standalone thing. They were just advertising it as a new thing. All right, here I am getting distracted by the fancy storefront and the bright colors. Um, so I don't need another Easy Drummer expansion at the moment for what I do, but there, as we'll see, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Hopping over to Superior Drummer, here's kind of just a good resource just to have. It'll show just a lot about it. You can get some stuff. It's not the cheapest thing in the world. That's why I was like, oh, that price was pretty good. But it's got tons of, over 230 gigabytes of sound. So you got to make sure you have plenty of storage space to put all of these sounds on there. And it comes with, a variety of different things that you're kind of ready to go just out of the box, but you can always add more and customize it to what you need to do. I'm not going to play them right now, but there's a whole bunch of audio demos so you can kind of see, okay, what do they sound like for different genres, different ideas, and then this can take you to some videos on, how does it work? What do they do? This kind of thing that I'm kind of doing right now. We'll look at the interface in a little bit and all of that. I'm just going to kind of scroll through the page, but you can look in all around it. It can play around with some surround sound if that's what you do. Um, there's a whole lot of just handy tools to have right here. Again, I'm just kind of scrolling through. This videos tab here is very useful just to refer to, so it's nice to have that. If you just go to TuneTrack Superior Drummer 3, searching that should get you right to this page. Um, but yeah, we can kind of go through all of that. I think we're almost getting there. Here's the differences between the different ones. So, Superior Drummer 2, that one's depreciated. We don't have to worry about that. We're going to look at Superior Drummer and Easy Drummer 3. So you can kind of see the differences between the two. More kit configurations, surround, MIDI, audio conversion, all kinds of things. Basically, it's just the bigger, beefier program with much more control. And then there's the user manual, which is definitely worth having, even if you don't need it. I just have that kind of saved on a spare hard drive for me. Um, and then like system specs, so you just want to make sure that your computer has the stuff. And you have plenty of storage and RAM. Most things will run with it. I've found that I want to have all of my sounds on an SSD drive, a solid state drive, as opposed to a spinning disk hard drive. I just need that extra speed to get the audio in and out of the DAW. There have been a lot of times where I have my This is the old drive I had here. This spinning disk drive. Um, Plugged up, ready to go, and I'd press play, and then I have to wait for 30 seconds while it spins up, and it's a horrible workflow. So I would recommend a solid state drive whenever you can. And the size kind of depends on how much stuff you want to get. While I'm here, I mentioned the stuff you can add to it and kind of make your own. Um, if you scroll down, that's what these are. So each program here has its own expansion. The Easy Drummer and Superior Drummer ones, those you can kind of hop back and forth between. Particularly the Easy Drummer ones play better with the Superior Drummer than vice versa. Um, but again, you can kind of explore, see what works. The Superior Drummer ones tend to be bigger and a little more expensive, just comparatively speaking. I'm just going to kind of scroll through these. So if there's something that you're kind of interested in, or maybe you do a lot of jazz stuff, or maybe I'm just kind of looking through metal, Music City USA. I have a rock one and an orchestral percussion one. Um, are the ones that I have from this collection. Um, just because that's mainly what I focus on. But if there was something else I wanted to do, you get what you need. So like if I click on this decades right here, it'll take a second to load because of course it will. There we are. Um, so you can see um, these are all audio from Al Schmidt, pretty much, and it kind of goes over the short version of it. Where they were all sampled from, what was sampled, that kind of thing. You can see the presets and sounds um, for the thing that you're looking at. Just find out a little about it. See if that's actually what you're interested in. Again, I'm not gonna deep dive through everything, but again, a lot of helpful information here just to see if that's what you're interested in. Again, they're a little more pricey just for some comparison. If I go over to products and look at the Easy Drummer sound expansions, there's going to be a lot more of them, but they're going to be a lot smaller, usually less drums involved in these, less samples, totally fine. But if I scroll through here, there's that Beat Machine I was looking at. That the way they had it on their website made me think it was a whole separate program that I just missed. Um, but no, it's just an expansion. But if I scroll through here, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of different things that, again, kind of depends on what you're looking into, what you're doing. I think I've got one or two of these. Yeah, the Twisted Kit down there. So maybe you're really into or wanting to write a whole bunch of, I don't know, indie folk type stuff. I'm just going to click on this one. It's going to take a second to load. We scroll down here again. It's cheaper on the price, but then there's less stuff in there. But you can see all that info, see what it sounds like, how it was made, the details, all of that. Really, they're really upfront about what you're getting in the packs. Once you do that, again, you can add it to cart, go to checkout. You need to make an account to have all this. You're going to get the TuneTrack Product Manager, and that is the program that manages all of your TuneTrack everything. Um, I was hoping it'd be a little closer to downloading just to kind of show off some of it, but we're going through there. I'm reinstalling some stuff on my end. So I mentioned I have a lot of things, but not everything. So you can see here I've got the Easy Bass, the Easy Drummer 3 that I had upgraded to Superior Drummer, and a few things on top of that. There's Easy Keys down here. I'm finishing up installing my last four key libraries, and there's Superior Drummer right down here. So once you've downloaded this program from their website, which they'll send you links to do whenever you buy stuff from them, just to be like, hey, here's how you use it. You need this program. You'll run through the basic install process for your computer, and you'll log in on the website with the same account you made, or you'll log in on the program with the same account you made from the website. From there, it'll pop up everything that's been that you've bought on that account, and it'll pop up right here, and you have the option to download it, um, and it'll start downloading it, and then it'll walk you right through the process. It'll download it, it'll install it to wherever you tell it to. It says yes, you've bought this, you're authorized to use it. And if there are any updates, it'll run through there. So you just kind of click through the processes and it'll just kind of go. It's really straightforward. Before you start doing that, though, you definitely want to make sure that you have the download location set. So I have this on my extremely fast SSD right here. So you just want to make sure you kind of have that set and kind of choose where things are installing to. So because it's downloading to the SSD, it's taking a little bit longer, but it's keeping it out of my main computer here because this will quite largely balloon stuff up again. Superior Drummer's base library is 200 and something gigabytes, and then I've got a lot more on top of that. So I think my total tune track sound library is like 600 gigs of audio files. It's a lot. So I've mentioned that there are, again, the core programs and the expansions to it. There's also MIDI. So as we'll see in the program, the sound samples and the MIDI are two different things. So you can go in here and you can say, okay, I really like this instrument. I want it to play this beat on here. And you can change those independently. So maybe as you build out your drum beat, you then add other stuff in your track in the DAW and decide, actually, this cymbal isn't quite working. This tom drum I don't like, this whatever, you can swap it out at any point without changing the MIDI. You can also change up the MIDI beat without changing the drums. The MIDI is just the instruction for the instrument to play whatever sounds it has going up there. So a lot of these libraries will have some MIDI kind of built in to them, which is handy. It comes with some stuff, but you can buy some MIDI specific packs depending on what you're doing here. So I have some, rock fills and some jazz and some cinematics kind of stuff, some orchestral things, all of that on here. It just depends on what you do and what you find that you need. So that's kind of going on. I may run you through some of that install process just so you can see it. We'll see how long this recording goes through. But if I open up Superior Drummer 3, it's going to load up. And boom, here it is. This is the default setup right here for Superior Drummer 3. And think of this like a virtual, like just a real drum kit, as if you were in the studio looking at your drum kit. This is what you would be looking at. This is kind of the default one right here. You can click on all of these to see what they sound like. I have that going right there. I want this. Is this not going to do it? Settings. Where did that live? General. I just want to hear it going out through my other output, but I'm not going to spend too long working on that. If I can't audio MIDI setup, I just missed that. Yeah, audio device. I want this going out the interface so I can actually, there we go, I can actually hear it, not out of my tiny little computer speakers. So there's all of the sounds. These kind of mesh ones, these are things that you can add to the default kit without any change of things. So maybe your play stuff, you decide, I really want a China cymbal. So you can kind of right-click that, and it'll pop up some, here's kind of the default one. So maybe I want this Zildjian K, which is a nice one. Maybe I don't. Maybe that's actually a crash ride. Maybe I want this China one. I can just swap it out. You'll notice every time I'm swapping it out, this bar is kind of loading up. So maybe I'm going to add a second rack tom here, and I'm just going to stick, I don't know, this one. This tiny little one. That changed. This is the computer loading in all of the sounds from wherever you've saved it, from your drive. Again, if I was on that slow spinning drive, that would have taken 30, 45 seconds to load up. I purposely bought the fastest hard drive I could for that. So again, you can load it up, again, change things. Maybe you don't like this bass drum. Maybe you want that one instead. And you can build your custom kit to have whatever drums that you want. Coming over here, this is where you can start customizing how they sound a little bit. So here's this tom, this tiny little tom. Maybe you like it, but maybe it's a little too piercing. I can make it a little quieter to kind of blend in with everything else. So you can, on a drum by drum basis, change how loud they are. Maybe it's a little too high, so I want to lower it in terms of the tuning. So you can fine tune that. There's a lot of flexibility on this one. It's kind of crazy. And you can optimize it again for cymbal. You can do this with cymbals too, which is just really, really fancy. Going through here, as we go down, there's a few other things you can adjust. This reverse. I can have the drums play backwards, which is kind of fun. I can adjust the envelope and the offset. So if I expand this, here's the kind of that sound envelope. Maybe I want to offset it by a little bit. I'll set it by a lot. Again, you can really fine tune. Do you want a little delay on that? Do I want it to ramp up? That's not particularly helpful because now it kind of ramps up again. You can customize every little aspect of the sound here. Some of the other things that are handy, this velocity curve, you can, maybe I want it to, you can kind of choose what the inputs and outputs are in terms of those volumes. So if you're playing like on a drum pad or with a MIDI controller, you can really fine tune that. I don't use that a ton, but it's handy. You can map it to different MIDI values for your MIDI controllers and your electronic drums. And then you can add hit variations right here, so it will you may hear some slight changes between each of those hits. So it's playing different samples each time you click it to make it sound a little more realistic. So you can add that there. Again, you can add whatever you want. You can remove stuff that you don't want from there. Is it going to let me do it? Remove instrument. There it is. So again, you can pull out stuff that you don't need. So maybe you decided you don't want this this china sound, you just pull it out. You don't need it. If you want to add more to it, again, if you maybe have a whole bunch of different sound libraries, you can go to add instrument and just search for instrument, and it'll pull up all of the ones that you've got, which I have a fair bit of stuff just with my libraries. So again, you can pull up everything. So maybe I really want this one. I just picked a random one. It'll take it and it'll just stick it over here, and it'll just kind of add them on the side. So if you want like wind chimes or a gong or whatever that isn't part of the normal kit, you can add them here and just trigger them with your MIDI data. Super handy, super customizable. And then if you want to adjust just one sound by itself, so maybe I want to change the snare, if you click on it and highlight it, you'll see at the top here, you can change what drum that you're actually wanting to look at. And you click here, you can see here's all of the different ones just kind of broken up by what you're playing them with. So most common will be drumsticks. So maybe, I don't know, we have this Radio King 50s. Let me just, yeah, I'll do that Black Beauty. Why not? But you can kind of change it up. Maybe I want a little bit of a bigger one. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, that's a good one. From there, but maybe you wanted to play it with brushes. Well, here's some sounds with brushes or rods. And you can see like, okay, here's all the stuff with snares off from there. So again, you can really fine tune it, get the sound you're looking for. And under more, again, you can actually load in your own samples and record stuff. I'm not going to dive into that right now, mostly because I haven't had a need to do it with what we've got there. But you can do that. Before we hop on to the other tabs here, I do want to point out these are some presets up here. So you can click up here, and this is where you can start seeing the different libraries that you have. So I have the Easy Drummer, kind of the basic ones, that Twisted kit. and then the legacy of rock and orchestral percussion on top of the superior drummer kind of core libraries. Each of them has their own set of preset drum kits for you to work with. So again, if you don't really know where you want to start, or maybe I was like, I'm specifically doing rock stuff, I'm going to click on Legacy of Rock. It'll load in, and boom, this pops up. Very different, but same kind of thing. You see, you've got all the sounds here. It's weird how they've tuned that, but okay. You know, just a whole bunch of different sounds. That one's going to ring for a bit. But instead of default, we can see a few things. This one has, here's some presets made by Eddie Kramer, who kind of did the library here. Maybe I want, I don't know, jet black plate. I'm just going to click that. It's going to load up that particular sound preset. So again, you can start with the presets. They're super handy, but then I always like to start with one and then fine tune it to get it exactly how I want if I don't know what I'm looking for to start with. So again, you can pick your library and then your presets. You do have to kind of go bit by bit there, but again, you can load up any drum that you have, but in terms of, you have to like pick a library to start with is kind of how it's broken up. Moving on, we have the Grooves tab, and this is where the MIDI comes into play. So on the Drums tab, this was us picking the sounds that we wanted. Now we have to tell it what to play. So if I click over here, we're going to see a few things. Up top here, we can kind of filter things out based off of what we're wanting. So we have some stuff again by genre, play style, type, the key signature, and the power hand, kind of the main thing that's being played in that groove. You can also filter things down here by kind of the folders and the different packs. So again, if I wanted to, like, I really wanted a rock fill, I can click on that and it'll, boom, here's all the stuff in that basic rock fills library. If I clear all, then it just goes back to here's everything, which is a lot. So you can just, if you want to, you can just scroll through and find some stuff. You can favorite things that you like, which just makes it easier to find later. And then these dots, this little graphic, this is a representation of what the MIDI is. So I'm just going to press play on this first one. Cool. That's fun. Maybe I want something a little bit different. I don't know, I'm going to pick this one. And so on. So that's all there. You can see they're all kind of broken up by what they are structurally in terms of the name. So that's a verse, that's a long fill with a lead in, cymbal comping. They have choruses, lead, all kinds of stuff, intros, outros, and kind of the collection that it's in. So we got this bunch of funky dances at 116 BPM. So again, you can really fine tune it from there, and just a relative representation of how intense the sound is. So is it just a basic steady beat, or is it a real crazy kind of thing going on? So like this cymbal comping one, if I click on that, we're kind of relaxed. We're having not too crazy there. If I hop to this one right above it, it's a lot more intense from before. Actually, I'm going to stop that so that way I'm not talking over it. Then as we go over again, you can see that power hand, what that most common instrument being played in that clip is, the time signature, how many measures it is, and what the tempo is. If your song tempo in your DAW is not this, it will automatically kind of match the tempo of your DAW, and it'll speed up or slow down your samples, which is handy. Let's say we really liked, I'm going to pick this comping one, why not? I'm just going to click and drag it to this timeline down below, and boom, there it is. And you can do that. I'm going to pick this next one just kind of randomly, and this one. from there. So they have different colors and different name or different you know parts of the song that they fall into here. You can always change it by right clicking, and then under just song part, you can change it to whatever you want. Um, that's kind of up to you and how you want to organize things. If you want it to be with their colors, or you can set it to be like, okay, I want all of my intros to be purple. You can make them purple like that. That's up to you. Super handy right there. I'm gonna double click on this groove and we're gonna see this window pop up. This looks a lot like the drums window, and this is where we are changing play styles and things like that. So you'll see that the ones that are lit up are the sounds that are being played um, in the clip here. So if I hop over to this one, you'll see that the ride cymbal goes away and the snare drum lights up. You can change how much or how little it is. So let's say that we're here on this first one. I want to play it. Maybe I don't want that constant bass beat. So I can click the amount and take it down a bit, and it will kind of automatically pull things out or add to them if you wanted to add. So maybe I'll just play this first. So it'll kind of intelligently pull things out or add to them here in ways that kind of fit the groove and feel natural. So here it is with a lot more bass beats. So you can kind of really fine tune it. Maybe I want my bass drum to be a bit louder. Okay, you can play with it that way. Super handy. If you click on Grid Editor, this is where you can really fine tune what notes are being played when. So here's that beat that was just being played. Each diamond represents one hit on the drums as the timeline moves across the screen. You'll see that it also moves down here, so you can kind of track that back and forth. The highlighted ones, that's what you have selected. I had the kick drum selected, so all the kick drums are here right now. You can mute or solo the instruments, so maybe I want to just hear that kick drum. Just to see how it works. So if I want to pull things out while I'm fine tuning it, I can do that or put them back in. It's super handy. You can click on this arrow here and you can see all of the different articulations for that sound. So I'm going to open up them. You'll see that there's quite a bit. And you can click on all of them to hear what they sound like. So the trick to making this sound super realistic is not just playing the same articulation every time, but kind of changing it up every now and then in a way that feels natural. So here we have 5 different open edge sounds on the hi-hat. And it sounds like they just get more and more open as they go. So really picking, okay, I want it nice and tight here, a little more open in this section. Super handy, super easy to work with. Just explore it that way. If you don't really need to worry about that, you can just close it and hide it there. And you can always add more stuff. These grayed out ones, it played a sound by default. You see, I click floor tom 2. It's actually playing the floor tom 1 sound. That's what that little blue dot here is. Hey, I'm playing this one, but that's because there's not a floor tom 2 loaded in. So if I loaded in a second floor tom, this would ungray out, and I could add stuff in. All right, scrolling back up here towards the top, if I click on this pencil with a plus icon, now whenever I drag my mouse around, you can see that this little diamond is popping up. This is going to put the drum hit right where I want. So maybe I want this center snare hit right on measure 2. There it goes. And then if I play it, there's that snare hit. So you can click and drag, which is super handy from there. So now if I was just to play this wonderful beat, you can see how it played what I put in, and it also changed the articulations from there. So again, you can really fine tune and customize what you want. You can click on them again to delete them, and same thing with that clicking and dragging from there. So you can click, you see it changes from plus to a minus when I'm hovering over a note, because clicking removes it. If I click on here, you'll see that this dot also appears. This represents the what we call the velocity. For lack of a longer explanation, you can think of kind of like the volume. 127 is the maximum, 0 is the minimum. Maybe I don't want this to be as loud, so I can just click and drag it down. You'll notice that the triangle is actually kind of getting a little darker, a little more transparent, the quieter it is. So if I, instead of 127, if I pull that down to 44, this is going to be a much quieter snare hit on this one hit. I barely heard that. So maybe I want it a bit louder. There it is. That's a bit more. So again, you can really fine tune that that level of each of the notes. There's a lot of customizability right here. When you're entering stuff in, again, you can do it a few different ways. You could actually kind of record yourself playing in through the DAW, which is handy, but runs into a few issues. So you can quantize things, which means it takes the notes and it automatically nudges them in time to fit the tempo and the time signature that you have. So you can really set that there. You can just hit that Q max to get the most like in beat thing. That's great unless you specifically want something to be a little ahead of or a little behind the beat. There it can run into some issues. You can also do some swing there, moving it forward or backwards on there. That's what I would use to adjust that. So if I click the mouse, the select tool, and I select these bass drum hits and I turn up that swing, so we're not seeing it, but there it is, because it was already kind of swung. So there it is, no swing at all. It's just da 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 da. And as I move it over, it's then adjusting that swing. So we get da 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 da, that kind of beat there. Again, you can do some slight adjustments up here. I don't use these menus a lot, but it's handy up there as we go. And it defaults doing all of that by the 8th note, but you could make it go all the way down to 64th notes or a whole note if you want for that resolution on that swing. Super handy. You can hit that plus to zoom in and start adding in extra things. So maybe just for the sake of demonstrating. Here's this wonderful beat. So again, you can really zoom in to adjust what's going on right there. Same thing down here, but it's a little different. There's this kind of zoom bar. So this way, again, you can move, select stuff. You'll notice when I select a clip, it jumps to it in the top window, and the background changes color to match what you've highlighted down here. So you can just kind of easily see what's going on. So these clips, those are all 8 measures. If you click on the scissors icon here, maybe I only want 4. I can just click, it'll split it into 4, and then I can just delete it. Maybe I'll put this here and scoot it over. Scoot it over. There we are from there. You can really fine tune where you scoot things over to, but again, you do have to zoom in more to get that resolution. So if you want things to be in a very specific spot, you have to zoom way in to get to that spot. Usually, kind of round numbers is fine for most things, but again, it varies on what you're doing. So you can place your clips down here. You can move them around, change what they are. There's a lot of flexibility, which is kind of the name of the game. A few other things here to work with. We have the MIDI drop zone. If you have a MIDI file already that you want to kind of find some similar drum beats to, you can drag and drop it on your computer to right here. You can also be like, man, I really liked this one. And I can just drag and drop it to the MIDI drop zone, and it will find similar things. So this first one, that's the same file that we had before. and then it'll kind of organize them by how similar they are. So here's the next one. So you can find stuff that's similar but a little bit different to what you've got. So, which is a great way to kind of build out your tracks if you have repeating sections in your song and you want it to be ever so slightly different but have the same character, the same kind of drive and motion. That's a great way to do that. It's just load in your stuff. You can do that tap define, which if you don't have the stuff, you can let me empty that out. You can basically tap out your drum beat from here. And it'll do some automatic quantizing to play around with that. But let's pretend that that's what I want to hit show results. It will find things that match what you typed here. So they didn't have any exact matches because I just kind of clicked randomly, but here's the closest match. I don't hate it. But again, you can really fine tune it that way. Last but not least, I can copy things out here. I can paste it if you don't want to drag and drop. But under the paste option, you can paste everything just with the normal Command V that you would do on the computer anyways. But maybe I just wanted that kick. I can select kick, and now it only put the kick. So if you really like part of one clip, but not the rest of it, you can get just that drum. Again, maybe I can click on hi-hats here. And it's going to mute everything but the hi-hats. So again, it's super handy, super super flexible, lots of options, ton of things. Show web shop MIDI. That'll check for some other MIDI options. And they have like an online database of things you can pull from. I'm not actually going to dive too much into that because it's not popping up super fast. But again, there's extra stuff online you can pull in. Or you can hook up your own electronic drum kit or your MIDI controller, or just manually click them in, build the beats yourself. Super, super handy. Hopping over to the mixer. If you have a preset, this will have a lot of things already, but you can think of it like you've got mics on all of your drums as if you were in the studio. And in fact, this preset, it even shows some ribbon mics on the overheads here, which is just kind of fun. But you'll see that you've got dynamic mics on the kicks, two of them there, a kick condenser, two snare tops and a snare bottom, hi-hats, rack toms, floor toms, all of that stuff over here. You then get the overheads, the ambience and like room mics, things like that. Again, just a crazy amount of flexibility here. So you can move them. You can mute things you don't want. Maybe you don't want the this one drum mic. You want the other one. If you want to make sure something gets phase inverted, you can do all that right there as if it were a real drum in a real studio. You can adjust all the levels and the panning on your stuff to make it fit how you want. It doesn't do a lot in terms of effects, but there are some there. This one has an EQ already on it, which might be handy, might not. I don't know what you're recording, but you can load in stuff. If I click underneath it, you then get, there's some EQ, some compressors right here. There's a decent amount of options. You can get some distortion, some reverb, delay, and modulation there. So I don't do a lot with the built-in effects because I'm usually using this program inside of a DAW where I have more effects, and basically I like my EQs and compressor plugins that I have better than I like these ones. But there are options to do that right in the program right here. It's super handy. But you can turn them all off or on. There's some bus sins as well. So if I scroll all the way over, right here again, you can get some buses. So like here's the toms, the looks like some tape machines, things like that. Again, you can. I don't do a ton of that, but you could. It's handy. on there. And then what's a little more handy up here is the bleed. So again, if we're doing it, thinking of it like a real kit in a real studio, there's going to be a little bit of bleed. You know, you're going to get some hi-hat in your snare mic and vice versa. You're going to get a lot of overheads. The cymbals are going to be in your overheads, probably more than other stuff just because of where they're placed. But you're still going to get maybe a little bit of kick in there as well, that kind of stuff. You can fine tune all of that. So maybe I really don't want this to bleed into other virtual microphones. I can just turn that down or just completely off. I can just play around with all of that. That's what really makes it sound useful, not useful, realistic, is having that little bit of bleed between the mic signals, like you would have in a real studio. And you can decide what what's on. So if on this snare bottom we're getting some bleed from the kick and the toms, and that's it. So maybe I don't want the floor tom to bleed into the snare. I just turn it off. Or maybe I want a lot, a bit, maybe not a lot, but a bit less kick bleed. I can turn that down. It's not going to affect the kick sound. It's going to affect how much kick sound is getting picked up by the virtual snare microphone. So again, a lot of flexibility. I keep saying that, and that's kind of the name of the game right here. By default, everything is going to go out the outputs 1 and 2. In this case, it's some of these things are going to a bus. Like again, I got that toms there, but those are all going out output 1 and 2. That's what you're hearing. If I were to change that, then maybe I want my kicks on 1 and 2. Maybe I want all my snares. Okay, maybe I'm just going to pick this first snare channel. I can send that out. There's 32 different outputs on this program that you can set. So maybe I want my snares to go out on 3 and 4. I can just set 3 and 4 on the snares. And what this will do is in your DAW, you can say, okay, look at inputs 1 and 2 on this track, look at inputs or outputs 3 and 4 on this one, 5 and 6, and so on. And you can record each of your drums onto separate individual tracks in the DAW this way. I'll show you how to do that in the back half of the video that we're actually about to get to. But if you're just making stuff and you just want a stereo track of here's the drums, then you can just outputs 1 and 2. There you go. You can also, again, set it to the different buses here. I don't do a ton of that in how I use the program, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But again, it's just like creating a bus for maybe I want to pull down all of my toms at once in the mix. Again, it's a handy tool to have. I don't do a ton of it in this window. I would do that in the DAW specifically. Last but not least, the tracker. This can do a few things, but do I have an audio file easy to pull up? Actually, I didn't think about that. Here's one. Drag audio to get MIDI. I put that in. And what this will do, you can drag, put an audio file in there, and it will find the the kind of the beats. You see it's put little lines here where the big hits are. I'm just going to play a snippet of it. This is a license-free track, but you know how YouTube can get. And it's kind of put stuff in on those kicks there. I can change what they are, the different sounds, things like that. So this is really handy if you have a track and need to build a drum beat to it. You can drag and drop it. It'll put some stuff there already, just to kind of work with it. It's not perfect, but it's a great place to start. I don't use this one a lot either, but it's there. It's handy. I mainly use the first 3 tabs is how I use the program. Okay, last but not least, in this view, you can go to File and Save, and you can save these projects to pull them up later. So that's super handy. If I'm just going to hit Save As, and you can name it whatever, and it'll pick the folder. You can change where you want that to be if you want it to be somewhere else. But name it whatever you want. I'm actually going to name it an actual thing. Demo 1. Save. And now you can pull that up. And this works both in and outside of the DAW. So what this will mean is that you could build the drums yourself, load it into the DAW, and boom, there it is. Or you can take your session from your workstation and open it up just in the standalone if you don't need to work on the other stuff. It's super handy for that. Um, but go there again, you can save it, save a copy, and then you would just open. You can see here's your recent things right there, um, or you can browse through your stuff. A few other quick things. Again, your settings are all right here, depending on what you would need to do there. Down at the bottom under track, this is super helpful. So you can have different drum tracks and think of it like different songs, different beats that you would play. So track one would be like song one in your set list. Track two would be song two, and so forth. But what you can do here is on this track menu towards the bottom, you can there's a few settings that you can play with, but what I use a lot of is the export song as MIDI file and export song as audio file. So I can make it here and I could send it to whatever I want, either as MIDI, so a file with all these notes and instructions right here, or just as an audio file that I could process in the DAW. Again, it's um, the name of the game is flexibility. There's other stuff in here as well. Again, you can adjust the time signature, the tempo, the playback controls, some macro parameters. If you want to set those and adjust them, you can. I don't do a ton with that. Song creator, again, you can create a song using their little tools here, MIDI controllers, all that kind of stuff. Um, it's I keep saying it's flexible, and it is dang flexible. So I'm gonna hop out of this, and while I wait for live to start, I'm gonna show you the installer process just to be comprehensive. So I'm gonna close. Oh, that did not take long to load at all. Actually, usually it takes a little longer than that. I'm not going to save that. So we're here. It finished. I clicked the download button before this all started. So there would be a button that says download product. I'm going to hit install product on here. It's going to run through the thing. You'll see how big it is. You're going to enter in your stuff. I'm going to, or is it not going to do it on my watch? Okay. Enter in my password. And then it's just going to walk you through this process. This one shouldn't take too long. Of course, it was also like 13 gigs, so we'll see. Banking on that really fast hard drive, so that way I'm not just sitting here with a bunch of downtime, because I don't do a lot of video editing. I don't want to cut a lot of this out. Waiting on the install. This is probably outside of the download speed depends on your internet. The install stuff, that's probably the next longest part, because it has to copy and write all the files. It'll say, cool, it was good, or it'll say, no, it wasn't. It just kind of depends. This thing going to say authorize. You'll notice now we have 2 check marks here. I'm going to say authorize. It just says, yes, I indeed bought this. It's saved on this drive. Here's my computer. There you go. And if there was an update, it would say, okay, now here you update there, and it'll do the download and everything at that point. I'm just going to go down the line real quick. I don't know why it's not asking me on my watch. It normally does. There we are. So if I enter in my password correctly, that might be it. While I wait, I check my emails. No new emails. Got that text message down below. Can wait. All right, I just wanted to try and show the updates. Nope, that one's up to date. And these are all Easy Keys expansion packs. That's the EK, Easy Key, on there. So you're for Superior Drummer, it would be SDK or EDK if it was Easy Drummer, all that. All right, and then install the last one. Gotta have my DX7 sounds. Authorize. Yep, no updates. Okay, all my stuff is up to date. Well, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth there. Again, you would just follow the same instructions, download the updates, install them, just like that. Just click through the menu, super handy. The last little bit here is after you've done stuff, it's going to take up some space there, so you can hit this cleanup. This is going to delete the install files and these things that you don't need. They're just extra space on your computer. So I always like to, when I'm done, just delete that, and it cleans it up. So there we go. It's all good to go. I'm just going to close this out, hop back into live. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So I just need one MIDI track and one audio track here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up my browser window if it wasn't already open. And under plugins, I'm going to scroll down and find tune track. And there's going to be all your stuff right here. You'll probably see that it's a little small, but there's an audio units and a VST version for each of those. Some of them have three, because there's like VST2 versus VST3. We don't need to dive into those differences there. For the most flexibility, pick a VST one. Audio units is more Mac stuff, if that's relevant. So I'm going to pick VST3. I'm just going to drag and drop it onto a MIDI track. And this should look very familiar because it's the exact same interface. The difference is that this is not the standalone program. If you look down at my dock here, it doesn't say Superior Drummer 3. This is wrapped inside of Ableton. Maybe, and depending on how you want to do it, I'm going to do it in the horizontal view right here. But you could do it in the kind of live or production. I forget exactly what they call them. I always say horizontal or vertical because that's what the tracks orient as. Right there, but it's now loaded up. You can do all of the stuff I spent way too long saying you could do in the standalone. Right in here, you could, maybe I want to open up, here's that demo project. It's going to, boom, there's the stuff I just did. It loaded it up. There we go. You're going to notice there's a new button here, though, that says Follow Host. What this will do is when you're controlling playback in Ableton or whatever DAW you're using, the playback will follow what this does. So I could press play in Superior Drummer. I forgot about that. But it's not going to do anything up here. But if I press play up here in Ableton, then this playback, it's following what's up here. Maybe I want to jump ahead a few measures. Maybe I want to jump ahead. There it is. You see it jumped ahead just like that. So again, you can I like the follow host, super handy. You just have to remember to control the playback in the DAW, not in the plugin window. I can also use that to adjust the tempo. So by default, everything sets a tempo of 120, but maybe I want it a little slower. Maybe I want it at 100. I click that there, it changes, but it updates right here in Ableton as well. Or not in Ableton, in Superior Drummer. I press play. And it slowed everything down. So again, it'll match, as long as you have that follow host button on, any of the changes you make in Ableton or whatever DAW you're using in regards to tempo, time signature, all that playback, it will follow and match up. So super handy right there. Let's say I wanted to record this as audio in Ableton, because that's what I like to do. I like to do all of the drum stuff, get that just perfect, just right, and then record it as an audio track as if I was in the studio recording someone playing the drums in real time. I would then be able to do all of my effects and mixing and all of that much easier than in the MIDI plugin window. So here on your track, over here on this little side window for this audio, it's going to default to this external input. That's, for me, that's the audio interface that I'm using right now. That's where my microphone would be. And yeah, I could pick and choose. Oh, I have to configure it. Audio. Yeah, I don't have an input device. That's my input device. Right there. And I'll also make it my output device. Why not? There it is. So I select that, and then this is where I could pick and choose what I'm doing. You can see that I have the mic I'm talking to, that's plugged into 1. And you'll see a little representation of that. 4 is where I have my external metronome plugged into. There's just a little noise in the signal because of how it's set up, but If I did that, if I turned on this input monitoring, you can hear the metronome right there. I'm going to not do that though. You can also make it stereo or mono. So again, the 1/2 means it's a stereo track looking at inputs 1 and 2. Or if you want it mono, you just pick 1. Uh, so again, it's you can think of it this way. When you look at this, the top drop-down menu is the device. The second one is the input. Then you have the monitoring here. So it's either going to always monitor the inputs, only monitor when you're recording, or not monitor anything at all. That's kind of what these are. And then you can choose the outputs. So you can send the outputs to different places. I'm not going to deep dive into this other stuff on this side right now, but that's more controls. So if I click on the device, this is where things get fun because you can get an input from other instruments and other tracks in Ableton. So if I go down here, I can see, oh, look, I can get an input from the reverb and delay buses down here at the bottom. But I can also get the input from Superior Drummer. So if I click Superior Drummer and I click on there, you get post mixer. That's just output 1 and 2. That's everything as is. But then you see we get 3, 4, all the way to 31, 32. So maybe if I say post mixer, I say record, and then I just start recording. It is now taking the audio from Superior Drummer's output and recording that here onto a new track. I'm going to stop for the time. So if I mute Superior Drummer and just play this, then I can go in and do all of my effects and processing just like if I was doing it on a normal drum bus. I'm not going to do that right now. If I made a few more tracks, I could go in and say, okay, Superior Drummer, I'm going to have, actually I want you to be 3 and 4, and you to be Superior Drummer 5 and 6. So there, so I'm going to click on the Superior Drummer track, go to my mixer, and on my outputs, let's put the snare drum, that's on 3 and 4 already. Let's put the toms on outputs 5 and 6. All right, outputs 5 and 6. Everything else will be on 1 and 2, which will be down here. And if I hit Command to select all of these to record on them, and I record a bit, it helps if I unmute the track. So if we look at this, we can see a few things. One, the stuff at the bottom, basically the same. But now we have just the snare hits here on this track. And we haven't done anything with the toms. I didn't remember if there were any toms on the drum samples that I did. That's just how it is sometimes. I'm going to turn that monitoring off so it's not quite as loud. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any toms there, which is fine. It still shows the example. So we've got the idea. There's all the audio we recorded. Since this is just the snare drum, if I'll unarm these, not that I'm planning to record, but if I solo this and play it back, you may have to turn it up a little bit, but you can hear a few things. One, it's just the snare, but there's just a little bit of boom from the hi-hat bleeding into there. So again, it's very realistic on that front. So you can hear the boom. I'll play it again. So again, from there, and then I could go in and just to show that I can, if I just go to audio effects, compress, that'd be under dynamics. Let's just do a basic snare compressor. Here we go. And just put it on there. Boom. Now I can affect just the snare drum and not the other parts of the mix. That's why I really like doing this, is having a separate track for each part of the drums on there. So then I can add in all my other stuff. I can do all the mixing, all the automation, all the everything. It's great. I save it, export it, share it with family. That's all there. That is um, going at a glance with this unscripted breakdown, kind of everything that you need to know to really get started and diving into Superior Drummer. And really, any of the Track products will work very similarly to this. There are some differences, obviously, with the its keys and bass, and one for mixing as opposed to drums, but they all have this very similar design aesthetic and design language to play around with. So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this is a video that you can look back on and just kind of refer to over and over again if you need it. I'm gonna make this like publicly available to people, so maybe they'll be interested. I don't know. Maybe you'll get a million views. Maybe it won't. I don't know. This was intended for like one specific student, so I'm gonna sign off now, and I hope you enjoyed or at least tolerated my rambling. Bye.